There we are. All right, now we are beginning to learn today. We already went through most of the commandments of this week's Torah portion. And there are 63 commandments altogether here. So we finished the last couple of days, if you've been keeping up with us on the past classes that we put up on YouTube. So here we have a couple of interesting commandments. One commandment we said is not to defile God's name. Another one is to, yes, sanctify God's name, which often implies, in its pure sense, giving your life not to rather than transgressing commandments of God. And this does not apply to all commandments. Generally speaking, a person is supposed to want to live and is supposed to live rather than die by not transgressing the commandments. So if somebody puts a gun to the head of a Jew and says, don't keep Shabbat or something like that, then he's supposed to defile the Shabbat. Supposed to do. But not always. There's some conditions where sometimes when even that, he's supposed to give his life. Like, for instance, if it's in the time of, like, they had the Inquisition and things like that, where they were trying to tear people away from Judaism, or to show that Judaism wasn't really so important, take it or leave it. Or if it's in front of 10 people, 10 people that see you, and they say, here, eat this, even if it's a commandment from the rabbis, where they say, light a fire under this milk and meat, that's from the Torah. Or eat a cheeseburger. It's all cold. It's only from the rabbis. It's forbidden to do. Nevertheless, if it's at the time of a decree of the non-Jews that are trying to make Jews, it says you're supposed to give your life. Interestingly enough, if you don't give your life, you're not punished because you're under duress. Similarly, it says there are 3 crimes that a Jew is always supposed to die rather than do, and that is worship idols, and sexual crimes. Someone puts a gun to a head of a Jew and says, either have relations with this animal or with somebody's wife or with a man, or we'll kill you. As a person is supposed to say, you can kill me. I don't want to die, but I'm not going to transgress that. Or to worship idols, right? Somebody tells you to, takes you into a church and says, bow down or something. You're supposed to give your life. That's what it is. So it says. So that's called Kiddush Hashem. The Kiddush Hashem, to sanctify God's name. Commandment in this week's Torah portion. Here we said there's a lot of details. If it's in a multitude, if it's a time of a decree, etc. Like I just said to you. Next commandment, positive commandment. Now we're going to have the holidays. This Torah portion speaks about the holidays. So you're supposed to bring sacrifices on the holiday of Passover. Give me a moment here. One moment. Excuse me. One moment. Let's go. Okay, really. To make a sacrifice of a korban musaf, the musaf offering, all the 7 days of Passover. A musaf means the additional offering. Not to do any work on the 7th day of Passover, a positive commandment. To sacrifice the omer. Remember we talked about the omer? Sacrifice the omer. A negative commandment is not to eat any grains from the new crop until you bring this omer sacrifice. Next one, positive commandment, to count 7 weeks, complete weeks. Every day is a commandment. There's a commandment. We were asked that question last time. Is every day a separate commandment on its own, or is it separate? There's different arguments about that, because if you don't count all the days, then it means that you don't count all the commandment is to count 50 days, 7 weeks, 50 days. This is actually 49 days. You're supposed to count them. What if you don't? So you made a blessing every day and you didn't count the last day. It means all the other blessings were taking name of God in vain. So they say, no, it's not so, but there's also different answers. In other words, every day is also a commandment. You're supposed to try to do it. A positive commandment to bring two bread, chametz bread, on the holiday of Shavuot. Positive commandment, not to do work on the holiday of Shavuot. You're allowed to do work which entails preparing food, but not regular work like on Shabbat. Another two positive commandments, one positive commandment, to not do work on the first day of Tishrei. That's Rosh Hashanah. Interestingly enough, the Torah does not call it Rosh Hashanah. And also it says that you should sound a horn. It doesn't say a shofar, right? The shofar, it says by the Yovel, the 50th year. Okay, they learn it. God made it that way so that the rabbis would learn out. A negative commandment, you should not do any work on Rosh Hashanah. It's a positive commandment. Negative, that's a negative commandment. You're not allowed to do any work on Rosh Hashanah. Two more commandments. A positive commandment to fast on the 10th day of Tishrei, Yom Kippur. No, so there must be another commandment here. To fast on this. A negative commandment, not to eat and drink. This the positive commandment is to fast. The negative commandment is it is forbidden to eat and drink. So in other words, you get two commandments if you don't eat or drink on Shabbat. One is a positive and one is a negative. A negative commandment, a prohibition. Don't do any work on Yom Kippur. There you can't cook also. It's like on Shabbat. All the things that are forbidden on Shabbat are forbidden on Yom Kippur. A positive commandment to sacrifice the Musaf offering on Yom Kippur, like it says, Yitkravtem Ishe LaHashem. Two more commandments. A positive commandment, not to do work on the first day of Sukkot. A negative commandment, not to do any work on the first. That's the positive commandment, is to rest from work, to rest from doing things. And the negative commandment is not to do any work. So it's two commandments that a person fulfills if he does not do work on the first day of the holiday of Sukkot. Next, a positive commandment to sacrifice the extra offering all the days of Sukkot. It starts off on the first day, you offer 13 oxes, and the second day, 13, the second day, 12, etc., etc. You go down in number until it comes out finally an average of 70 oxes, corresponding to the 70 different nations of the world, in order to bring blessing to them also. A positive commandment, to rest, not do any work on the 8th day of Atzeret. The 8th day, I'm sorry, Shmini Atzeret, what I'm talking about. Shmini Atzeret, which is the 8th day of Sukkot. It's a holiday in itself, the 8th day. Positive commandment, to do a Musaf commandment, to do a Musaf offering, an extra offering on the 8th day of Sukkot. Positive commandment, to take on Sukkot the 4 different types, lulav and etrog, hadas and arava, with all the details in their very beautiful and complicated commandment. A positive commandment, to sit in a sukkah for 7 days in the holiday of Sukkot. Here's where it comes from, Parshat Emor. All these wonderful commandments that we do on these wonderful and happy holidays. And that is the last of the 63 commandments that we have in this week's Torah portion. And now let us go to, 1 second. Oh, yeah. I don't know if it has it over here. We had yesterday a different, let's see if we can just try it again. Yesterday we had a different version of this, and it had the explanations of a lot of different commentaries, the Or HaChaim. Okay, let's just try it one more time, all right? I want to try this one more time and see if we can do it. Here we go. Called Tatsuga Meshulevet. The what's Tatsuga means, like the the Tatsuga presentation, a presentation, a combined presentation. This, if I can, I hope I can get into it. Let's see. Here we go. There we are. No, lo, 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 oh, lo. More than the Torah. This is not what I want. Why can't I get what I had yesterday? That was what it was called. I did the same thing as yesterday, and it's not working. Huh? Why is it not working? Why? Should say Mashulavet. Let's try it one more time, right? Ta su ga Mishulavet Parshat Emor. Get the same thing. I wrote something a little bit differently. I got the same thing. One second. Oh. No, it's not it. Oh, isn't this too bad? It was so beautiful. They had the explanations. You know what? Maybe we'll try Mikrot Gedolot. Maybe Mikrot Gedolot. Let's see. Mikrot Gedolot Parshat Emor. Mikrot Gedolot Vayikra. Mikrot Gedolot Parshat Emor. Parshat Emor. Here we go. See if I had the bear. This is Mikrot Gedolot. How is this Mikrot Gedolot? Mikrot Gedolot is supposed to have a lot of different explanations in it. And this does not have. This is just the reading. Why? Oh, maybe it says. How disappointing can we be, huh? This is insult. So I'm really sorry that this is happening. I don't understand why.